Demi, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Um, one of the things that I really like that you actually do on your pod, which I've been listening to in preparation for this, is you actually allow people to introduce themselves in ways that feel good for them. And I kind of wanted to give you an opportunity to do that also. Um,
Oh,
will you just tell us who are you, maybe in this moment actually, and what are things that you want folks to know about you?
my name is Demi, and I identify as non binary, but most importantly, I'm just a human on this planet that is working daily to try to expand my consciousness to become a more empathetic and compassionate person to my neighbors and my community. And that's how I identify in this present moment. And I like to sing.
I feel like you've had such a gender journey, and we've talked about that recently, but I'm curious, can you talk just like a little bit about what that's looked like? Has it been longer than the moment when you sort of came out?
Totally. It's always longer than what the world sees, right? Like I look back to when I think the first times that I ever questioned my gender was probably in like the fifth grade, fourth and fifth grade. Like I started dressing more masculine, and even though a part of my life I was still very feminine, I was doing beauty pageants and getting glammed up for these performances or events that I was doing as a kid. In my downtime, I was finding it more comfortable to be around the boys and to, I guess at the time, make fart jokes and like whatever fifth graders do. And I realized like, oh, I'm not that girly. And it wasn't until I went to middle school that I completely changed my image and kind of my branding to make myself more digestible for people in middle school, because I just had a sense that they weren't going to be as friendly as they were in elementary school. And sure enough, I was right. But that was the catalyst to the rest of my life living in this hyper feminine state that I didn't totally always identify with. I mean, there were times where I shaved half my head and wore flannels and combat boots, but was in a hetero relationship. And like, I've had a very interesting journey, but yes, it didn't just start with a few months ago, me being like, yeah, I'm non binary. It was me learning what that was through friends, having a real uh, self-exploring look into myself and learning what that meant for me, and then coming out to the rest of the world.
A lot of people had that space that they didn't get otherwise in the pandemic. Was that helpful for you, or did that not have anything to do with it?
So it's interesting because in the beginning it had nothing to do with it, or I would say, but actually it had everything to do with it, because in the beginning, I going into March 2020, I was starting to identify as non-binary. And then I met someone and I got into this straight relationship, and that was great, but that led me to ignoring all the parts of myself that I didn't think were digestible for my partner at the time, and who ended up becoming my fiance. And I mean, in hindsight, that was the dissolvement of that relationship was actually probably the best thing that's happened to me, because of what that led inside of myself. More, I became, I was able to stand on my own 2 feet without needing someone else to validate me or to make me feel accepted. And when I said goodbye to that relationship, I also said goodbye to everything that was holding me back from being my most authentic self. And I really started to identify with close friends and family as non-binary towards the end of last year. And yeah, it was the dissolvement of all things that had held me back from identifying as the person I do today.
That's kind of amazing. That's a
Thank
big,
you.
yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Um, was there a moment where you were like, oh, non-binary? Or was it a slow, like for I remember, like, because I'm non-binary trans, and I sort of have a moment, right? But for other people, it's a slow burn. Like, do you have a
Oh,
moment?
yes. I'm sorry. I thought you were going to finish that.
No, that was the end.
Okay. It was a slow burn. I'm just kidding. I definitely had a moment where I was like, aha. It was an aha moment for me. I did a song with my friend Sam Smith, and they identify as they them. And so working together on that song, um, towards the end of 2019, I started asking them questions on, being non-binary and gender non-conforming, what that was. And they said, why don't you come to this poetry show with me? And my friend is performing. And it was Alok Vaidmanan, who we all know and love. And it was when they were speaking on the stage that I had tears coming down my face. I was belly laughing to where, they could hear me from the stage, although I was in the front row. So that's not very hard to do because I have a very loud laugh. But anyways, I had that aha moment, and that changed everything for me. And I went up to Alok afterwards and I said, now, this statement kind of confuses some people, but I think for people who identify as non-binary, it resonates. I went up to Alok and I said, is being non-binary just being healed? And they said, yes, oh my gosh, you get it. And for me, that statement wasn't being healed as a human of traumas and things like that, but it was being healed of the gender norms that had put trauma on me and in my life growing up, and it was saying goodbye to all of that made me feel like I was finally home.
That's what I was going to ask you exactly next, which is like, what is non-binary to you? Because it means so many different things for all of us. Like,
Yes.
beyond being healed, like, what is non-binary for you, and how has it changed the way that you see the world that you navigate?
Well, for me, healing is the catalyst for everything, for every decision that I make in my life. I ask myself, is this going to help my healing process while I'm here on earth? Because I believe in reincarnation. I believe in the fact that we're supposed to learn all of our lessons while we're here, so we don't have to do it again. And so I always act out of what is going to be the most healing for me. But being non-binary, what that means to me, it really does mean that I don't that I'm so much more than the binary of man and woman, and that we all are so much more if we allow ourselves the ability to look within ourselves and challenge that binary that we've grown up living in. And so it's challenging everything I've known, everything I've grown to believe I should look and do and act a certain way. And it's chucking all of that out the window and being like, this is who I am, take it or leave it. I don't need you to take it, but I feel great, even if you don't.
That's amazing. I'm curious about what this is like, though, because I mean, a lot of folks have watched you just grow up. Like, we've seen you since you were so small. Is it weird to do this as a super public facing person and then also have like old images of yourself that we're gonna have forever? Like,
Yeah, that's the weird thing. I understand that as I grow and evolve, not everyone is going to grow and evolve with me, right? But what I do kind of cringe at sometimes is when I see older images of myself looking super hyper feminine that maybe fans make into fan art, and they don't mean anything by it, but it's like I look at that fan art and I think that's not me. That's I don't know who that person is, because the person I am today with short hair, with um and the person that I've been over the past year publicly, I mean, that's who I feel like I am. And so it's hard, I think, when I see pictures or images of myself on the red carpet from when I was 17, 18, or whatever, even just a couple years ago. I feel like I'm not looking at me, but I recognize that that was a part of my journey. And yeah.
That's so weird. I know it's most of us have that with our families. You seem to have that with the whole world.
I do. And I have that with people who are liberal, and I have that with people who aren't liberal at all. And that has been kind of a painful part of the process for me, is realizing that there are members of my own family who I would have expected years ago to maybe receive this news with more of an open heart. But as the kind of divide in our country has sharpened, so has some people's views. And I've had even family members um, not entirely disown me in a sense, but just say that they don't know me, or they, and that's kind of hard, because it's like, I thought you were family, and so I know what it's like, but it's also like I can't think about the people that are going to critique what I'm doing and saying and how I'm living today, because this is what's keeping me alive, not their opinions of me.
Yeah, that's a it's life-giving to be out. It's also
Yeah,
really difficult.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
I'm curious, the difference. How do you feel like queer people have received you coming out, and also like straight fans, and just how do you feel like folks have responded and embraced you?
I feel like my queer fans have been probably the most supportive out of everyone, because I feel like they get it. They understand what it's like to come out and not be received well by certain people or family members or whatever. I feel like there have been a ton of straight fans who have been supportive as well, that they may not understand fully, but they're like, we still love you. And that to me means so much, because it shows that they're willing to make an effort. Um, and then of course I've had some straight fans that are not so receptive, and they think that it's some new fad that liberals have made up. And it's like, if you really do your research, it's actually not a fad, and it's been here for thousands of years. So um, sorry about you. Like, eh, it's you're always going to have someone that doesn't like what you're doing or saying, but the point is you can't adjust your life to make yourself more digestible for them to intake you or experience you.
One of the things that I find so exciting about just the work that you're doing now is you're talking to a lot of trans folks, you're talking to a lot of queer folks, you're lifting up a lot of people, and you've gotten very political. I'm curious, why is that important to you, to be out there right now, to be talking about trans issues?
It's important. It's just like the fundamentals of humanity. It's like it's the right thing to do, and it makes me so frustrated and heartbroken when I see that there are people in this country actively doing the wrong thing and trying to fight for the wrong thing. It just makes me that much more passionate to fight against them and say, hey, remember, at the end of the day, we're all human. Like, it, yes, inclusion is and diversity is very important, and it's important that we recognize that, but it's also important that we remember that, like, just to be a good human. And that's what it's not it makes me sad that some people are like, thank you for being so outspoken, because it's like, I'm just doing what people should be doing.
Do you feel like your life's work has changed at all since
Oh,
you
yes.
okay, tell me
Oh,
about
yes. Well, because if you think about it, the past 10 years of my life have been dedicated to uh, mental health. And even the very first activism work that I started doing was talking about my experiences being bullied and how that affected me growing up, and then being an advocate for anti-bullying campaigns. And um, so I've always shared about what's affected me, and then decided to open myself up to the world. And now it's kind of like it's less about me and my personal experiences and more of there's a fight within myself to fight for my community. And I think there's an element of maturing that takes place in your late 20s where you realize, well, maybe earlier for some people, but I was a little delayed in that department. It's like realizing that you're not the center of the universe, even if your career may tell you so at times. Like, you're not the center of the universe, and there's bigger fights to lend your voice to rather than just your own all the time.
what are those fights for you right now?
Those fights for me are um obviously ending racism, ending homophobia, and um just like the Black Lives Matter was a huge it was a very pivotal point in my life last year when I was reading about Ahmaud Arbery and what had happened, and I just started sobbing. Like, it was like 2, 3 in the morning. I'd been watching, I think it was Weeds or something, I don't know. I'd been watching that, and then all of a sudden, which is ironic because anyways, that's a whole other conversation. But I was reading the news, and I just started sobbing. I thought, what am I doing to help with this issue? What am I doing? And I couldn't really say much at the time. I'd said maybe I've reposted some stuff on Instagram, but what am I actually doing? And I thought, I need to be more involved, because we're all stuck at home for a reason. And if that reason is for me to realize that I need to start focusing on bigger issues, then, like, let's take this as a learning experience and grow from it. And so that's what I started doing. I started getting more active in trans rights, and just trying to help with everything in the world today and all the problems. So
How has that changed the way that you exist in the world? Like that feels huge.
uh, the way that's a incredible question. I view myself as more of a team player now than this uh, privileged pop star that I've lived in this days of white privilege for so many years where I didn't recognize that. And recognizing where I've been privileged, understanding what that must look like to other people. I don't know, it really made me look within myself and uh start to just like take accountability for things, and check myself. And I don't know, like I said, I think I look at myself more now as a team player than just a pop star in the center of people's attention.
One thing that I wanted to ask you about was the changing standards of beauty and non-binary people within that. And it seems like you have become so free over the last year. Um, can you talk just a little bit about, like, were you apprehensive about coming out as non-binary, and then about just like exploring gender in terms of your presentation?
Yes, I was very nervous in the beginning to come out as non-binary because I didn't want anyone to, I don't know, I didn't want people to feel like it was inauthentic by any means. I didn't I just wanted people to really see what that meant to what coming out as non-binary meant to my healing process. And that's what was the most important to me, is like just sharing what this meant to me. Um, and and yeah, I was definitely very nervous. I knew that a lot of people who aren't as happy-go-lucky in California, you know, I knew that some people wouldn't be stoked, and I knew that there would be conservative people writing about this on the internet on their platforms, and I just thought, you know what? I can only focus on myself, and if this is crucial to my healing journey, then I have to do this. So I did.
That's amazing.
Thanks.
Um,
Oh, the second part of that question, I'm sorry. You asked like, what did that look like and presenting wise? For me, it's been relaxing the feminine side of myself to embrace my masculine side more. And what that's done for my body image issues has actually been really helpful, because I no longer feel like I have to gravitate to the bodycon dresses, or, you know, like I can wear this baggy stuff and feel like a boss. And I love that. So I like playing. Some days I feel super feminine, some days I feel super masculine. Today I'm on in a more masculine vibe, so that's what we went with.
do you feel like your gender is still in process? Like, is this a journey forever?
Yes, I definitely think it's a journey forever. There might be a time where I identify as trans. Like, I don't know what this looks like for me. There might be a time where I identify as non-binary and gender non-conforming my entire life. Or maybe there's a period of time when I get older that I identify as a woman. Like, I don't know what that looks like, but for me, um, in this moment right now, this is how I identify. And I have a feeling that it's not going to ever go back to one way or the other, but it's about keeping it open and free, and just I'm a very fluid person, and so that goes with how I express myself as well.
You've got some exciting projects coming up. You're working on just a ton of stuff. What do you have coming up that you're really excited about?
A nap. I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
well,
I'm just kidding.
that's so real. Ever since the pandemic started, I'm like,
Nap
nap
time? Is it nap time? Yeah.
all the time. Yes.
I'm very much looking forward to. I have a music video coming up soon that I'm very excited to shoot. I just filmed a pilot for a TV show, so fingers crossed that that gets picked up, because it's really funny, and I had a lot of fun doing it.
And more 4D with Demi
Yes,
Lovato.
yes, of course, more 4D. I just actually recorded an episode right before hopping on with you.
Okay, very excited about that. Which is just like some of the best like queer content I've heard. All these
Oh, thank
incredible like
you.
trans and queer guests coming on. Yeah, just
Totally.
yeah. So exciting things happening. I think, I mean, those are the questions that I had. So I'm so grateful,
Wow,
Demi.
that was so fast.
A pleasure.